Hi, it's Gail the Planning Girl. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to my planning room. Here it is. This is actually my daughter's childhood bedroom, hence the door and her bed in New York City. So welcome. I'm actually sitting at my planning desk because I have a window above and I was hoping for some natural light while I answered your questions. So let me start off by saying thank you to all 515 subscribers. It is so exciting to me to have a YouTube channel and to have people interested in hearing what I have to say and seeing me plan and maybe learning some things along the way. And I just love it. And I love reading your comments. So keep them coming. And if you just joined me today and hit that subscribe button, welcome. I'll be talking about the giveaway at the end. So let's get started answering your questions. My first question is asked, how did I start with Happy Planner? Well, about 3 school years ago, going on 4, I think this fall, I was in Michael's with a handful of gift cards and was looking for some things to buy. I'm a card maker, and so I had some card making supplies in hand, but I'm also a former scrapbooker. I scrapbooked all of my kids' growing up years. My kids are now grown, and at the time they were too, so I was scrapbooking considerably less. But I was in Michael's and I saw this planner aisle, and what caught my eye were all these sticker books. And I like stickers. So I was checking it out, and what I had seen kind of clicked with a video I had come into my feed on YouTube about this planning style and using stickers to keep track of your calendar. And I thought, well, that's pretty cool. At the time, I wanted to keep track of my food and my fitness. And so I found a mini fitness planner and I purchased it. I also spied a teacher planner box. And so I purchased that and a few other things as well. And after my purchase, I did a search on YouTube for other happy planners and planning videos. And that was it. I was hooked. I love that I can use the disc system with the Happy Planner and I can pull things out and add things in, which kind of leads me to my next question. Would I try other brands? I like Happy Planner for the ability to put things in and take things out. But would I be willing to try other brands? Sure. I wonder though if the coil would bother me. I hear other planners saying that the coil on their recollections and on the Erin Condren planners bother them. And I think that might bother me too, because I sometimes have to pull my pages out to write on my Wednesday because even the discs get in my way. But I'm always open to trying new things. I have a TN from Amazon, and I also recently got one in my Simply Gilded subscription box. And I use my Simply Gilded one for the Johnson the Mustang with my husband. Haven't gotten a chance to use that yet because this whole quarantine stay-at-home business. But I'm looking forward to using it again, or I should say using it for the first time, getting out again. I do use my Amazon TN as a journal. When my husband and I had gone on vacation, I had taken it with me, and each evening before I went to bed or in the morning when I was having coffee, I'd write about the day. So I would be open to trying other brands. So another question was, someone asked what was my favorite music from the 80s. Yes, I am an 80s girl. As you can tell from the gray hair, I am 50 years old. I really started getting into music, I think, my sophomore year, so about 85. And I love the top 40, would listen to the top 40 on the radio. I did have some tapes and I would listen to those when I was driving sometimes, or, with my headphones, because, so cool. I really like the pop music. I like that. Just it makes you so chipper and wiggly. Some metal, not too much, but I did grow up with brothers, so there was some heavy metal in my life. And of course the hair bands, Bon Jovi and, oh gosh, Def Leppard, Joe Elliott, hello, gotta love Joe. I have one true love, though, from the 80s, and that was George Michael, and I still love him. Saw him in concert twice in Philadelphia. It was a sad day when he died. And I always think of him on his birthday. His birthday is 2 days and 4 years before mine. So he's June 25th. But yeah, George, loved him a lot and still do. And so that's my 80s music. Someone asked if I've always been from the Pennsylvania, New York area, and the answer is yes. I've always lived in Pennsylvania. I live in Pennsylvania now. I was born in Philadelphia, which is the bottom right corner of Pennsylvania. And then in 1979, we moved to the top left corner of Pennsylvania. I'm not all the way on the top left, but just somewhat southeast of Erie. And there's my kitty. She hears me talking. I might have to let her in. We'll see. We'll get to pets, I guess. But yeah, so I live in very rural Pennsylvania. We are right along the New York state border, so it's only 10 minutes. No, I gotta let her in. She's distracting me. I was really hoping to answer all your questions in one fell swoop, but this is like the third time I've started this video. So here we go. Take 3. I think I'm going to have to do some editing. All right. Yep, got to check the look. It's so weird because I look there to see me so I don't look strange, and I look there to see you. And I'm hoping that I'm really, like, it looks like we're having a conversation, because I think that that's how a video like this should be. Like, you and I are having a conversation. So I was talking about where I lived. We are 10 miles from the New York border. And since where I live in Pennsylvania is very rural, I'd have to drive 40 miles to the nearest Pennsylvania town, which is actually where I moved to with my parents when I was 10 in 1979. But 20, almost, gosh. Yeah, because this is going to be 2021 next year. 19 years ago, I moved to the town in which I teach, and that's 10 miles from the New York border. And so we drive into New York State for groceries and running errands. That's where the Joann is. If I want to go to Michael's or Hobby Lobby or to a mall or to see a show, not a movie, but a show, not that we do that, concerts, that kind of thing, I'd have to drive to Buffalo, New York, or Erie, Pennsylvania. So Buffalo is actually closer. It's about an hour and a half, an hour and 15 minutes, depending on what section of Buffalo you want to be in. And Erie is almost 2 hours from here. And here comes my kitty. Maybe I should segue into pets. Are you going to open the door and come in? I'm going to have to open the door and let her in. Again. All right, take 4. So since the cat is now in here, let's talk about pets. I grew up with pets as a child. I had a cat. Her name was Patches. I got her when I was 7, and she died, I think, when my son was almost 1, but it was before my daughter was born. So, yeah, she lived a very long life. And we had a couple of dogs when I was growing up. We had a dog when I was very young until I was in 6th grade, and she got hit by a car. And that was sad. And then when I was in 8th grade, we got a dog, and she lived until after my daughter was born. So she lived for a long time. Mike and I, as a married couple, we bought a dog, Number. She was a cockapoo, and we had gotten her when we moved here, and she lived for 14 years. We currently have a cat. Her name is Silver. She was a treat and release, a catch and release kitty. In the county in which I live, someone left like $1 million or some crazy amount of money to round up all the strays, neuter or spay them, and release them back where they were found or in a safe area. And Silver found us, and Behind our house is a farm. It's no longer a functioning farm. It's more of an abandoned farm, although there are people that do live in the house. And 4 winters ago now, Silver, we saw her walking about quite a bit in our yard, and we saw cat footprints on our front porch and deck and the back porch. And it always made me feel so sad because the winter was so cold and harsh and seemed to go on forever. So I started leaving her food. And I know you're not supposed to leave. Sorry, she's walking around. I know you're not supposed to leave like food out for stray animals and stuff, but I truly, truly felt bad for this cat. And especially on some really cold, windy, icy nights, I would wake up the next day and she would have been cuddled on the mat by our front door or our back door. And that just broke my heart. So I started leaving out food for her. And she gradually got to know us. When spring and summer came, she walked closer and closer and closer, and she would meow and talk back when I would call to her in the yard. And one day, my husband and I were sitting out back, and I was actually sitting in the doorway with the door propped open because I already had my nightie on, and my husband was still sitting outside reading his book, and Silver was sitting near him and got brave and walked in the house. So that was in August, and we thought, well, if she's going to walk in, we need to make sure that she's safe. So we caught her and took her to the vet, and she was fine, didn't have any kind of bugs or anything. So we felt more comfortable letting her come in to the house. The first year, she spent a lot of time outside and was leery coming in and would only stay in the kitchen. And then as she got to know us, now that we've had her for a few years, she just owns the place. So that's how that goes. So we'll keep Silver. She's a good kitty. If I didn't have Silver, I would be fine with a dog. I like dogs too. I think everything needs love and deserves love. Yes, even snakes and bugs and spiders and mosquitoes. Although I'll swat a mosquito, I'm just saying. Okay, another question. Favorite color? I love yellow. I love bright, sunshiny, palish lemon yellow. In fact, Sarah's room, as you can see, is gray because it looked hip and modern for when she went off to college, and I wanted to make sure when she came back she had something a little bit modern. Her bedding was gray, but she loved all the new stuff I brought here into her new bedroom, and she took it back with her in New York. So that's an old cover on that bed. So there's like a lump of things on the bed now. And now the cat wants to leave. I have to let her out. Isn't she something? Hang on. Take 5 because the cat's out. She's going to want to come in again though. So let's talk about favorite color. I love yellow. A pale lemony yellow, just a pale yellow is my favorite shade. But red appeals to me now in my old age, my old dotage. And in my middle grade years, I really liked purple. I do like purple. But yellow, yeah, yellow. You can have more than one favorite, right? Okay, another question. Someone asked about teaching. I have been teaching for 30 years in my district. Wow. Yes. I am teaching the children of kids I have taught. If I teach a grandchild, I'm leaving. Whether I can retire or not, I will leave. Although I always tell my students, and if you're watching this, children, you know, I will teach you and your grandkids and your great-grandkids. And I will say to them, you're just like your grandmother. And I will have no teeth, and I will be pushed around in a wheelchair, and that will be fine, but we will still get the grammar done, right? I teach middle school, 8th grade, 7th grade, and 6th grade. I have taught high school classes in American literature, British literature. I've taught creative writing and an SAT prep course as well. But for the past couple of years, I've just been teaching 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Now, I started off when I went to college getting my degree in elementary education and started my teaching career in the elementary school. But while I was in college, my advisor said that I should go ahead and do a dual major and get a dual certification. So I did, and it did not take me any longer to go to school. In fact, I finished my 4-year degree with a bachelor's degree in under 3 years, and I also had a double major. So, which kind of leads me to my book question, but finishing the question of teaching. When I graduated, I had an elementary education certificate and an English certificate. And I spent the first 15 years of my career teaching at the elementary school. I was hired at my district to teach 2nd grade, and then the very next year I moved to 3rd and taught 3rd grade for 5 years. Then I moved to 6th grade for a couple of years, and then I was scooched to 4th grade, which I loved. I thought that was the ultimate grade. Then the high school English teacher retired, and the superintendent moved me to teach at the high school. So that's how my career evolved. I love teaching my middle schoolers. It was tricky the first year, and I will admit that first year I was in the middle school, I struggled. But I think it's hard to go from, 9-year-olds who sort of still want to believe in Santa Claus to 13, 14, 15-year-olds who roll their eyes and write bad words on the desk. But the persona I have created as Mrs. McGee in school is one I think that speaks to many students. And I'm very happy with where I'm at. So this is my 30th year, and I will keep on trucking. And I've been at my district the whole time, and it's been good. I love it. I love teaching. How do I like e-learning? Someone was asking me about that. E-learning is tricky. We use Google Classroom, and that's new to me. We've been using it for a couple of years, but I never really got into it and have had to since March. So I use Google Classroom. Our school also uses Study Island, which is something you have to pay for, and that's fine. And we also use Accelerated Reader, which is something else you pay for, and that's fine too. So I'm using those 3 platforms for my online learning. It is tricky, but I think it's good tech and keeping my brain sharp to try to find these different books online and activities and coming up with good questions and that kind of thing. I find it tricky to do like a mini lesson with the kids when I have to email back and forth to try to explain an answer to a question, when if I were in the classroom, I could say something in like a minute versus a 10-minute back and forth email. So there have been good and bad things about online learning. You as an art teacher, I would love to explore ideas on how you could do some art, but I'm concerned about the amount of time I'm spending here in this interview video because I can only upload things that are under a half hour. So I would gladly chit chat with you. You can message me on Instagram, or you can send an email to my Planning Girl email, and you can see that here on my homepage. So another question was, what do I read and how do I read so many books? I'm an English teacher. Reading and writing is my thing. That's what I'm best at. And when you work on a PhD, you read a novel a day. And so I've learned to read quickly. So I am a fast reader. I would recommend a ton of American and British literature. I love Ernest Hemingway. I love John Steinbeck. I love Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck. I teach that. I have taught it. So yeah, I've learned to read quickly, but that's what I do. I don't play on my phone. I don't Facebook. I'm terrible about doing my Instagram because it doesn't really hold my attention. I don't play with my phone. I don't really get on the computer. I get on the computer in the morning for probably a half an hour while I have my coffee, maybe later in the day. So when I'm not teaching online or at school or out for a walk or cooking or interacting with my family, I'm reading. That's what I do. I don't watch television. I'm not a big gardener, so I read. Who do I like to read? I like to read escapism. My life has enough drama that I don't need to be kept on the edge of my seat. So I enjoy the occasional romance from Nora Roberts. I like reading the Beverly Lewis books about the Amish culture, or Wanda Brunstetter. She's pretty good. I enjoy the occasional Jodi Picoult book. I will read from her. Adriana Trigiani, I like her as well. I've got one, in fact, in my little stash behind me to read soon. Debbie Macomber is another feel-good kind of writer. Nicholas Sparks. I read the whole Harry Potter series as an adult several years ago when it first was released. I like Elizabeth Berg. So generally when I pick out a book, I'm at Ollie's or a used book sale, and there are some authors' names that will catch my eye, but usually it's the title or the book cover, which of course you can't judge a book by its cover. I recently bought a book. I won't say the name here because, suppose the author's watching. It had the coolest cover and it had a neat title and it was a really cool font. And I picked it up and it was a horrible book. I hated it, but I'll plow through it. And that drives my husband crazy. He's like, just put it in the used book pile. Nope. If I start it, I have to finish it. I am too type A to put the book down. So there's that. Oh, here's a couple of titles you asked. I flipped back through the list of books I have read this year. One is called Rainwater. I couldn't tell you the author's first name. It might be Sandra, but the last name is Brown. That was good. My mom read it. She liked it too. Here's another one. It's called The Bear and the Nightingale. And the author's last name is Arden, and her first name starts with a K. The Girl on the Train by P. Hawkins. Again, I just write the initial down of the first name. I don't spell the first name out in my planner, so I couldn't tell you who the author was, but I really like that book too. So there's been others that I've read this year that I've really enjoyed. And then when I'm done reading a book, my mom and I share books with each other, and I take them sometimes to school and share them with my aide. Otherwise, I sometimes take them across the street to my neighbor. Otherwise, I chuck the books in a box, and when we have a full box between my husband and me, we take them to the used bookstore and donate them. All right, the last one, I think I saved the best for last. And this gal asked about my marriage. And I've been married for 26 years in February. My husband and I met each other in high school when we were juniors. And I switched from the Catholic school to the public school. And he was the second person I met in school on my very first day. And I met him at his locker, and he was in his football jersey. And he had the blondest hair, but the darkest eyebrows. And I thought, oh my gosh, he's one of these 80s boy airheads who dyes his hair. And so I'm like, do you dye your hair? He's like, no. And then this airhead football player started showing up in all my college prep classes. And I thought, oh, maybe he has a brain. And one day we were walking down the hallway, and he and his football buddies were walking, and I was a few paces behind them. And coming the other way was a young man who had special needs and wore a helmet. The side of his head was concave. And his face just lit up, and he said, "Hi, Mike." And my husband said, "Hi," and said the boy's name. And then you could tell that really made that kid's day that Mike McGee, the football player, said hello. And he kept walking, and some of my husband's buddies started laughing and making snide remarks. And my husband stopped, and they stopped. And my husband was like, hey, knock it off. He's an okay guy. And he said his name. And that just solidified for me. People need to do that. And I tell my students that story because we have to stand up for each other and let people know when things aren't okay. So I had the biggest crush on my husband my junior year and was quiet and shy and didn't say anything. And senior year, he had a girlfriend. But we were friends because we had several classes together and would walk through the hall sometimes together. And then he went off to college and I went off to college. And I graduated early and was substituting in the district I currently work in. And I was working on my master's degree and ran into my husband. And he was getting ready to graduate from college because that's when you would graduate in May. But I graduated in December. So he and his friend were out and my girlfriend and I were out and we hung out and he was headed down south to look for a job. So I was devastated. But then about a year later, we ran into each other again. And it's like that Prince song with Shanna Easton, except I was walking in and he was walking out of this club. And again, I was with my gal pal and I was like, hey, Mike's driving me home. See ya. And Mike had his car and I was like, will you drive me home? And he's like, yeah. I mean, we weren't even, was just walking in. He's like, you're leaving now? I'm like, yep. And it started to rain. And so we thought we'd wait a minute before we walked to the car. And we ended up standing there in the doorway for about 3 hours, just talking. And then he did drive me home and I gave him my phone number and we started dating. And 2 years later, we got married and we have 2 kids. And I love him dearly. Yes, we take walks every single day since quarantine. We take our lunch break and we go for a walk together. There's like a 2.5 mile loop that we can walk near here by our house. And you also mentioned, subscriber, you also mentioned, what about these like walks and adventures you take to get coffee? We do that. We haven't done that since quarantine. That's not true. We did that twice since quarantine. Once though, we didn't actually get out of our car and walk anywhere. We just drove to Jamestown, got a Starbucks in the drive-thru and drove home. And oh, that was tricky because it's an hour just one way. So that was hard to sit that long in the car, but yeah, we just get out and we'll explore a different trail, a different path. He found a couple of trails driving around with our son yesterday. So we'll be exploring those and we walk and talk and he tells me about his day and I tell him about mine and we make jokes and remember things and we dream and plan the future. And we even, if we had $1.6 billion, what would we do? And we're silly. So he's great. And I hope that you find your person as well. So, alrighty, I think I hit all the questions, and between all of my stops and starts that I'm going to piece together in this final little bit, I hope that you got to know me a little bit better. I love your comments. Keep them coming. I enjoy talking. I try to picture you and what you're saying, and it's fun to have planner friends. Even though we've never met in person, we meet through comments online. I think that's kind of neat. So thanks so much for joining me. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. And if you liked this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And I will see you next time. Oh, did you stay till the end? Because you need to know who the winner is of the Happy Planner product. Congratulations to my subscriber, the Curvy Latina. Yay! Please email me at my Planning Girl email, which is here on my homepage, or see me on Instagram and send me a message, and I will communicate with you via email or message. We'll get your home address and your name, and I will send you a selection of Happy Planner product as a special thank you for being one of my 515 subscribers. I'll see you next time. Thanks for joining me, everyone. Bye.